our research shows that around a third of the time, meetings are rated super unproductive. You can imagine if you're running a business, that means millions. If you're running an economy, that means billions. A lot of meetings are really centered around so-called millennials and Gen Xers. So we actually don't have the youngest and the oldest employees in our organizations present for a lot of meetings. When we get generationally diverse representation in the room, especially at senior executive levels where they're making decisions, it really does reduce the number of unproductive meetings.
It's curious to me, especially when you consider how much people prefer to advertise to younger people. And yet you're building these tools, these things to serve those people in a lot of organizations, and you're not even thinking about including someone from that particular generation in the meeting.
Generational diversity is a really great way of raising the intellectual capital in the room. So if we can get more diversity in the room, we raise the intellectual capital and that gets results.
Welcome to It Gets Late Early. I have my first return guest here. I have Dr. Daniel Jolles. He was, I think, episode number 4. He's a behavioral scientist and psychologist with the London School of Economics doing inclusion research. He's a fantastic guy, now a friend. Thank you so much for coming back.
No, it's my pleasure. In fact, it's my privilege to come back. You have totally blown up since the last time that I was here. This has become like a celebrity post. So really,
yes,
I feel very fortunate to be back in the chair. It's my pleasure.
Well, thank you for giving me the time of day back when I had no followers or anything happening whatsoever and just believing in the mission. So really appreciate you being there for the whole long haul, and so glad I've gotten to know you over the course of this and even meet you in person, which was so incredible. I got to see you back, I guess it was last fall at this point, which feels like a million years ago, but in London for the event with Protivity and LSE, and that was just stupendous. So thank you again.
No, thank you.
So cool.
It's my pleasure.
Well, you keep on pumping out this really cool research about generations in the workplace. And I guess, something that I think unites all generations is our hatred for meetings in the workplace. And so I just want to ask you, based on the research, based on your own personal experience as an employee, do meetings suck? And does it matter how old you are?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. This is the research that we've just been doing. It's been around generations and meetings. And what I want to say is sometimes meetings suck. I think whenever I start a conversation about meetings, I can actually see people kind of roll their eyes and they're thinking about the crappy meeting. Usually everyone's had a crappy meeting like that day or that week.
One. Yeah. Multiple times that day, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a shame because, meetings, like, they should be this place where we're coming together as generations. So they should be the kind of hotbed for intergenerational connection and for people to learn from one another and acquire new skills and for us to be getting all the business benefits of diversity. Our research shows that around a third of the time, meetings are certainly not doing that. In fact, they're probably just, they're rated super unproductive. And with a third of meetings being unproductive, you can imagine if you're running a business, that means millions. If you're running an economy, that means billions. So there is a big business case for us to get meetings to not suck.
Wow. Okay. So you're totally right. I hadn't thought of it from that perspective, but it would seem just by the very virtue of having people across different departments and what have you in a meeting that you would have representation, you'd have people talking together. It'd be like a place where people could connect, where they could have conversations, where maybe they could even find a mentor. And by the way, that does go both ways, up and down from an age perspective, but it's just not happening. What do we do about this? And how many organizations actually even understand that this is a problem at this point?
Yeah, well, I think everyone kind of understands that it's a problem, but I think too many organizations have just come to accept it as the cost of doing business. And I think the other thing that happens is people get really comfortable with their meetings. They have the reoccurring calendar invite, and it's just the same thing that they turn up to all the time. We're all guilty of that, myself included. But, when it comes to generations as well, we find that there is a huge lack of generational diversity that's actually happening in our meetings. So a lot of meetings are really centered around, I guess, what we would call the so-called millennials and Gen Xers. So we actually don't have the youngest and the oldest employees in our organizations present for a lot of meetings. And that our research suggests that that's really hurting productivity because there is diversity benefits to be gained by having, those voices from the younger and older employees present in meetings, especially when it comes to like big decision meetings. So those that are happening at executive level. And I think for organizations now, they need to start finding ways to be bringing those voices into the room, even if they don't occupy the traditional kind of management layers, if you like, that are now mostly the seats that are being held by so-called millennials and Gen.
It's still the millennial moment, I guess. I mean, it's curious to me, especially when you consider how much people prefer to advertise to younger people, right? How businesses, despite these people not necessarily holding as much capital or discretionary income, they will focus on, like what the 18 to 24 demographic. And yet you're building these tools, these things to serve those people in a lot of organizations. And you're not even thinking about including someone from that particular generation in the meeting. And it's so bonkers to me. I don't get how this is not an obvious problem that people recognize they need to solve. It blows my mind. How?
Yeah, and I think the same is also true at the other end. I mean, if we look at older
Certainly.
consumers, yeah, I mean, people over the age of 50, they have the most discretionary spend. They have a
100%.
huge amount of money to be using the market. And yeah, in advertising especially, there's just no representation
They're ignored.
of older adults in the industry, and particularly at creative level. And so, yeah, we could be doing a much better job speaking to older and younger markets alike.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I just find it even funnier that the one that they covet, the demographic that they seem to want to appeal to most, they don't even recognize the value of having them in the meeting. It's like, wow, I mean, sadly, they've been just, marginalizing older people and not marketing them for a while. But I think companies hopefully are wisening up to this because it's just so ludicrous. And I had a man named Brian Clark on the guest list from last year, and he talks all about the value of the older economy and what a miss it is for people not to actually be appealing to those with that income. So that's absolutely part of the story here. You're incredibly right, and it speaks to again the value of having people who are representative across your organization. Period, and that also extends to meetings. So how so companies you think are fairly aware of the issue, right? I think there are a lot of companies though out there that don't focus on age specifically. I mean, I know we often quote the research from PwC that 92% of companies do not include age as part of their inclusion programs. They don't consider it. So how do you think we can get them to, even if they are aware that there's not representation in these meetings, how can we appeal to companies to incorporate like this sort of a mentality of let's bring people together intergenerationally in meetings and in the workplace at large? I guess has something to do with maybe telling them they're going to lose money if they don't. But please tell us, how do we get this across to organizations? Because it's such a known goal. Like, what are they doing?
Absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head there. Let's communicate the value first. And I think that's what our research really does, is it shows that when we get generationally diverse representation in the room, especially at senior executive levels where they're making decisions, it really does reduce the number of unproductive meetings. So that's really important. And for those who are wondering, well, how does that work? It's not by magic. Generally, it does this thing where, if we get people with different perspectives, what we're doing is we're raising, I guess, what you would call the intellectual capital in our organizations, which is just a really geeky way of saying that, you get more people who are thinking differently about an issue, but you also get their social networks. I mean, you spoke about selling products to the people of a particular age and how it needs representation, those people who represent the market who are going to buy the products. But also when it comes to business development, the social networks that we have, the connections that we have, the people we know within the organization or outside the organization, this all contributes to the intellectual capital. So if we can get more diversity in the room, we raise the intellectual capital and that gets results. And generational diversity is a really great way of raising the intellectual capital in the room, because the experiences that different generations have, whilst I don't want to put, too big a brand on what each generation wants, each generation has certainly had a really different experience. So yeah, communicating that value, I think, is step one.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think when it comes to then the second step of once we've communicated that value is, okay, yes, we want to get generational diversity on the agenda alongside gender diversity
All their
and
forms.
race or ethnic diversity, but we want to do it in the right way. And I think those companies are doing it at the moment. Too much focus has been on the kind of extracurricular, like, oh, let's get our youngest employees to have a mentor or a reverse mentor relationship with our oldest employees. And most of the power now in organizations sits in the middle. It's with us, the millennials or the Gen Xers, and we're busy. We've got aging parents, often we've got kids, we have other commitments. We don't have the time to be doing these extracurricular activities. So we really need to be inviting the oldest generations and the youngest generations into the spaces where we are. And that is into those meetings, regardless of seniority or maybe official title, we need to be trying to leverage those perspectives and doing so alongside having some really inclusive behaviors. And that's a way that organizations can shake it up.
That's a really good point because, like you said, we're busy and we can't necessarily go to the after work happy hour, right? And so those connections have to be made on company time. Like that's just the reality. And you have to do it by facilitating that interconnection and that collaboration within meetings, probably most likely, right? And so it's actually probably one of the only ways you can do it, I would imagine, right? Like, especially if you're talking about, well, actually, I shouldn't say especially, but when we have a lot of remote work or hybrid work where people aren't necessarily in the same space, we have to figure out a way to bring people together and allow them to have conversations and connect and have discussions that are important, on a personal and a company level, right? And that space, I think, probably should or maybe has to be meetings.
Yeah, I think there is a combination. You and I, we're both regularly in demand as speakers and speaking to organizations and particularly their employee resource groups and others. So there is an education piece that we want to stress the value of.
Yes, that's fair. That's fair. Yes. That I meant internally the only thing they can do. To be clear, great call
Yeah,
out. Great
yeah,
call out.
yeah. Internally, certainly, yeah. I think meeting was a real space because and project teams where it can be focused on the work and getting work done. And I think that's also a lot of the things that drive cynicism. We're seeing this DEI backlash at the moment, and I think for those who are maybe cynical about it, it's not necessarily because they don't think that there's benefits attached to diversity. I think a lot of people believe instinctively almost that there are benefits attached to diversity. They just want it to be about the work and they want that diversity to work for them with a work focus and not become too much of an extracurricular thing to think about or a box ticking exercise. So I think meetings and project teams are an opportunity for us to bring people in and make it about the work and getting good results.
That totally makes sense. When it comes to, dollars and cents, or I'm sorry, this is a US focused podcast, so my bad. But for our international audience, whatever your currency may be, what are some of the costs associated with not having meetings that are inclusive of people across a swath of ages?
Yeah, so I think it can be, look, the costs associated there. It's very easy to look at the time spent in wasted meetings. That's probably the first one. So we all get paid a salary. The more
Time is
time we
money.
spend, yeah, time's money. The more you can look around a room, you can see what everyone's getting paid, and we've done that in our report and roughly calculated it. And for a lot of companies, the benefits of getting more age diverse teams in the room, in the meetings, is going to be, in the millions and millions of dollars, depending on the size of the company. So,
Listen up,
hey,
people.
yeah,
It
that's on the
matters.
table.
Come on.
That's simply like this kind of sunk costs or crappy meetings. What we can't quantify is the productivity benefits. So when executives are saying to us that, hey, our meetings are more productive when we have more generational diversity, essentially then what we're looking at is, well, does that mean that they're creating better products? Does that mean that they're solving problems? Does that mean that they're removing operational costs or breaking new markets? And those things are going to be specific to every organization. So as well as, essentially reducing that sunk cost in people's time, it's after that, the potential's uncapped. It's whatever your organization does best.
That's very fair. And since all of these companies out there are saving the world and, making gazillions of dollars, they should be really excited about that. Whatever they want. It's the sky's the limit. Love that. So we can't have any conversation today without talking about AI. So we're going to go there right now. And okay. I know you've been, let's roll. So I know you've been working on some research when it comes to AI and generations. And, I've seen some out there that is a little bit on the grim side, I would say, with regards to how people are perceived when it comes to their age and their ability and ease with AI tools. And now every single company under the sun is requiring that we use AI. They're not giving us a rule book or playbook or any sort of guide to get there, but they're like, y'all better be using AI. We're going to check if you don't. And by the way, tell us how you did it. We want to know what works and what doesn't. It's so interesting. So it's really kind of like open season on AI. But what can you tell me about the research you're conducting and any sort of early inklings about what we're going to find when it comes to AI and people of all ages, but also older people in specific?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I mean, a huge thank you. I think AI is the big thing, and it's the big thing where ageism is coming out to play, if you like, at the moment. The work that we're doing on AI and generations, it's sponsored by Productivity. It's going to be groundbreaking. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be real. And I guess for me, it ties into my broader thinking about AI. I get asked a lot, well, how is AI going to impact our experience of aging at work? And I can make a case for and against, and I don't know what's right. So I guess my case for is that older workers have a great deal of experience, they've got good acumen, and they're probably best placed to be able to use the AI tools judiciously, sparingly, and see the opportunities to really make the enhancements. I think that's really important. Older workers also tend to be good organizational citizens, and when we're talking about legal and ethical concerns, they're probably going to be a little bit more careful, if that's a consideration for business.
It is for me.
Yeah,
I like that.
so yeah, and certainly if you are an older worker, I would be strongly saying jump in and start, especially because AI tools, what they're doing is they're really removing the need to be a so-called tech native. It just allows you to get in there and ask a question and look at the results. So, really it's no skills required. And you can see that with a lot of the AI innovations that allow people to, whether it's design or code or do whatever without actually having to learn to design or code.
Or code, right? It's actually kind of democratizing access to entrepreneurship, innovation, product, a lot of that. So I see those positives. And of course, I also see some of the downsides as well, but very cool.
Yeah. Should we go with the downsides? Because
let's dive in. Let's dive into those downsides. They exist for sure. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a real problem of, I mentioned the term tech native. I would say tech nativism. So when we talk about AI, there is no doubt that younger people are being favored for jobs with AI, projects that involve AI. And I guess it remains to be seen. That's something that I'll be able to come back and talk about as to whether younger people are perhaps a bit more keen to embrace AI. But generally what we see with technology in general is that younger people can be a bit more enthusiastic at the beginning, whereas older people, especially workers, can be a little bit more I guess hesitant. They've seen the bubbles before and they want to know that, hey, there's actually going to be a good return. And so, I think last time I was with you, I spoke about bias against older workers in the field of tech. I think this is going to exacerbate that bias against older workers. I think we're already seeing it and hearing about it. And the problem is that means that we might have less responsible use. We also might have a lot of employees who don't have real skills or experience in the job and are essentially letting AI tell them what to do, and they're not going to know when it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
And we
It
also
might
might,
hallucinate,
yeah. And I mean, we're all talking about mass unemployment, I guess, of
Yes, we are.
whatever job roles that is. And I think there is a question as to whether that. I think younger people are also more sensitive to that. I think we already have a problem, I think, where a lot of younger people are looking at the modern workforce and saying, well, I'm not getting any loyalty. We've seen waves of redundancy since the global financial crisis of kind of around that period of '07, '08, '09. Certainly people who've tried to build their careers after that, they've faced a lot of tough times. And I think AI and the redundancies or the hype around the redundancies and what it's going to do is only making younger workers feel less stable in the job market that they're entering. So whether or not they're actually going to then be using AI productively for the organization, or whether they're going to be using it to serve their own motivations, is also a bit of a question. And I think it raises a lot of questions. I've heard the argument that AI creates a renewed case for universal basic income, and I
Yes,
find that really interesting.
me
And
too.
that could be good for entrepreneurs of all ages.
Could be.
Especially, we know that a lot of successful entrepreneurs start late. So
Yes, they do. Little known fact. You and I know that, but I feel like the general public, not so much. But yeah, no, I mean, all of these things are so critical to really take in, think about, and hopefully not like dive off the deep end of despair. But I mean, because there's so much that remains to be seen. And you pointed it out, there is a lot of hype around this, right? And you have to think about the messenger for some of this hype. And when it is coming from the mouth of the head of an AI company that stands to profit on mass hysteria around this and maybe is fundraising, like you have to scratch your head and think, well, who is this for? What is it serving? And just have a little bit more judicious take on things, right? But the reality is we don't know what's going to happen. And you're absolutely right that it is hurting young people a lot. There's already so much for them to contend with. And this is only exacerbating that in some regards. But as you point out, in others, it opens the door to maybe entrepreneurship or other paths that Gen Z and people of all ages, frankly, might want to take advantage of, right? Because these tools, they are really powerful. I mean, I have realized myself, I need to bone up on these because this is the way the world's moving. And so when I dive in and I actually use these things, I'm kind of like crazily blown away by what it's capable of. And, there are kind of two ways to look at that. One, abject fear and terror and hysteria. And two, like, oh man, what does this unlock? Right. And I just think I wish everybody would take the moment to actually go and try these things. But I feel like right now there isn't really much of a way to hold people's hands down that process other than to tell them to go to a YouTube video or something to learn about it. So I think that especially now that organizations are mandating that people use AI, I think they need to step up and try and help people along that journey. And, I think there's this real aversion to it because of all the negative conversation that's happened as well out there about the potential for destruction, which is a real potential, by the way. So like, I'm not denying that. But I think it's one of those things, if you don't actually embrace it, you really are putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. And it's unfortunate. I don't like it any more than anybody else that we have to like go and do this. But if you can kind of shift your mindset a little bit on that, I think it'll be really impactful. And furthermore, as you spoke to the bias against older workers, that it was absolutely present and of course remains still and is only exacerbated most likely by AI and the feelings around AI. It's really kind of non-negotiable, I believe, for older workers to do this, because if they don't, that just deepens that stereotype that we know is false. And so I like implore anyone who's older, please start using AI, because if you don't, those stereotypes deepen, they spread. And we don't want that because it doesn't help anyone, because we're all getting older. It's like, let's help one another out by not like basically falling neatly within a stereotype. Let's blow it up.
Yeah, and I mean, I love that, that call to everyone to take on AI and find something that you want to do with it or that works for, or where, the responses don't have to be perfect, or you can put up with the occasional hallucination. I think,
Hallucinate about a recipe or something, or like a trip you want to plan for me, but
look,
maybe not on important business stuff, please.
yeah, I mean, look, I use AI for data analysis a lot. And if it gives me a prompt and the prompt doesn't work, like, okay, well, that's a waste of 20 seconds and I can try another prompt. So it's not the end of the world. It's a low stakes game and I can always double check my findings using other tests. And I think in that way, AI can be super useful. I think in the research that we're doing, what we're really trying to do is give organizations some practical takeaways to get people working with AI in a way that works for the organization. Because I think a lot of leaders are really asking themselves at the moment, well, what do we do? Do we do more internal training? Do we give ethical guidelines? Do we ring fence it to particular situations? Or what do our workers actually need to be able to contribute with AI more? And I think the jury's still out. So I'm really hoping that, I'll get another invite back to the podcast. And
Yes, you will.
I can share some
We'll go for
concrete
3.
examples. Yeah. I mean,
We'll do it. I mean, and the reality is like nobody knows what they're doing out there. Nobody. Your CEO, no clue what's happening here. Like it's the Wild West. And so I think so much remains to be seen. And so if we can proceed with like, a little bit of hope, that will be helpful. And definitely just don't be frozen in fear. Don't do nothing. Just start. Do something small. Ask ChatGPT, whatever, Gemini, whoever your favorite one is. Ask that to like plan a trip for you or like create a meal plan. Something basic. Just start there because it is crazy what this thing could do. And you know what? The first responses are probably going to suck because your prompt is probably absolute garbage. But you will learn over time how to improve that, hopefully, if you keep trying. But I've actually talked to people who are like, I refuse to use AI. And I'm like, please don't do that. Please. I mean, listen, I know that there are all sorts of ethical considerations with AI. I mean, we haven't even touched like the impact on our climate or anything else. I just saw a video about what it's like living next door to an AI data center owned by Meta in rural Georgia, and it made me want to cry. It gave like Aaron Brockovich vibes about like the people around the plants. And if anyone has not seen that movie, you must. It's like a great, oh man, that's an inspiring one. And Julia Roberts, perfect, amazing. Anyway, but there are so many downstream implications of this technology. And so I don't want to suggest that you only use it to plan your trip or like get recipes because I don't want it to be hurting our environment for nothing important. So like, please don't do that only. But I just think people need to take that first step. And it doesn't have to be big or scary or monumental. It can be something really, really small. And that'll just get your feet wet, get you a little bit more comfortable. Talk to a friend who knows how to do this. There are super users of AI in every single company, and they are across all ages, especially if you go to someone who's a super user, who's over the age of 40, who's been there, done that, worked in their professional line of expertise for a while. Like you are going to gain so much by asking that person how they're using AI. And if organizations, the smart ones, what they should do is they should find those people within their organization who are tenured and are older and have a lot of experience with AI, give them a platform to talk about what they do on AI within your company and allow that to inform people's usage at your organization. Like that combination of like the technical acumen and your experience in the professional space, that's gold, right? And I feel like companies, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not embedded in all these different companies, but I don't know that companies are doing that enough right now. And I think that so much is to be gained if they do.
yeah, I think there are a lot of taboos around it. And I think also the unknowns, I think often when we're hearing AI, it's linked to job instability or redundancy. And so there's also a lot of information hoarding. People don't really want to admit when they're using it or when they've found an
Yeah,
effective cut or
so true. And there's a
uh,
gender piece there too when it comes to AI adoption and how women perceive it versus how men perceive it. And I've noticed this. Like men will proudly proclaim, I built all of this using AI or 100% and didn't touch it, went on autopilot. And women are a little bit more reticent to admit that. And I actually put a post out there a while back and I said that I had fed it was a press release I use ChatGPT for this, and I asked it to create like a short form social media script for me. And I was just thinking, gosh, I'm trying to do this all on my own and I need a little help. And like, let's see what this thing can do. Can it get me like a decent take one? I started reading it. Sorry, it's just you. Well, audience, whatever. It hallucinated the hell out of that press release. It made up statistics. It made up details. And I was like, wait a second, reading the script back. I was like, none of that was in that press release. And that's the only thing I fed it. Oh no, I was using Clough. I was using Anthropic, right? The one that says it's like ethical and all that. And I gave it back to, I asked the question, I was like, why did you include these details? Where did you get them? And it literally wrote back like, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I actually fabricated those details. And I was like, what the hell? What are you doing? Why did you do that? I didn't ask you to do that. And it blew my mind. And then I wrote about this. And the comments that I received were fascinating because a lot of them were like, well, maybe you should just try doing your work for yourself. And I was like, whoa. Like, calm down. And I don't see those same comments, and maybe I'm not looking hard enough, but I don't see those for dudes who are like, yeah, I probably 100% AI generated. And it's like, I took a stab at it and getting like lit up because I used it. I'm like, what is this? But yeah, there is a divide in terms of gender in interest in AI. I think it's closing, thankfully, because I'm worried, women are already behind in so many ways. I'm worried that lack of AI adoption would, of course, exacerbate that considerably. So again, another call to arms, like, women, please use AI. Please don't say, nah, if it's not for me, because of the same reasons, right? We need to make sure that we don't deepen those stereotypes about women in tech. But yeah, I think that we all have a lot of feelings about these technologies, and it makes sense because it's new. Granted, it's been in development for a long time, and people, been using machine learning for a while, and like our whole Netflix feed and whatnot is machine learning, for example. But it's just, I think, this generative AI and just the extent to which it's exploded makes it feel really new. But we have to try it. We have to try it.
Yeah, I think I think your point about gender is a really interesting one. I think some of the same messages apply to age. Like, I think this could be potentially an opportunity to level the playing field a bit for women in tech. So I'll be really curious to see the results of our research and the results of others that actually show take up differences by gender. But I also think that the ethical concerns that you've raised, they're legitimate, and I think we have those ethical concerns for a lot of tools in our daily life. How much do we use the car? How much do we do these other things? And AI, it is just that at the moment. It's a tool, a bit like email. I think it can be potentially a force to enhance the work that we're doing, and it can save us a lot of time and energy, or it can, end up being something that's perhaps a more uncomfortable influence on our daily work day. So, and time will tell because it's evolving rapidly.
It's scary fast. Like, whoa. It really is mind-boggling when I think about the first time I tried generative AI to where it is now. I mean, it's been like a year since I tried it, probably the first time. It's wild. And in fact, I asked my podcast recording platform to create my voice based on my past recordings, reading a script that I just input in, just the actual language, the words. And it generated a voice that was so uncannily like mine that when I sent it to my own mother, my own husband, they were like, oh, cool new intro for your podcast. I was like, that's not me. And I was like, oh boy, like, think about the implications for scam technology and like how that, I mean, gosh, getting into like how that's going to hurt people over the course of time, and aging populations who are going to be hit with this sort of scam tech. Oh my gosh. So like, yes, there are implications for this stuff. And some of the stuff I see coming out, like these brand new videos that are completely AI generated from Google. And I'm like, who asked for this? Like, who wants this? Like, nobody wants this. Why is this here? So there's some applications of it that I'm like, why don't we do less? Let's just ratchet it back,
Yeah, and certainly that example that you gave, I mean, that is a good example where I think there is a kind of positive case. There's an Australian celebrity. He's a former Australian rules football coach and player, and he has motor neuron disease, and he's been a tireless campaigner for motor neuron disease. And now they've been able to take all his recordings and speeches and press, and they've been able to generate his voice as he used to have it before he was afflicted with motor neuron disease. And now he can actually write his speeches and they can be delivered in his own voice, in his presence, where he's lost the ability to deliver speeches in that way.
Fascinating.
So there are, yeah, and that again is leveraging the power of AI for something that's incredibly positive. That's essentially giving someone back a skill that they've lost over many years
Well, I like that.
of fighting a disease. But yeah, at the same time, your voice could be used to operate scams or to try and
I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Well, y'all are, I guess. I mean, they can take it from your voicemail or whatever. It's crazy. But again, don't want to go down that dark path too hard, because it doesn't, I'm sure. Let's just assume that someone really brilliant is taking care of that for us, right? Right? Oh God. Anyway, back to meetings. So actually, I was thinking about the ethical implications of AI in meetings as well, and just the fact that almost all of these things are recorded somewhere now. And I remember just how unnerving it was just a few years ago. It was just during COVID. I remember I was being interviewed for a position, and without warning, this person who was interviewing me just like turned on the recording of our Zoom, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is going to be played for whoever knows at your organization. Oh, there we go. And I remember feeling so weird about that because I wasn't even asked if it was okay, and I was like, all right. But now that is every day, everywhere, every organization. I feel like almost everything is recorded, and I just wonder. I mean, well, first of all, do you think that changes the game of meetings? Does that make people share in a different way? I don't know if you have research specifically on this, but just like human to human, what's your gut take on just the advent of AI technology and recording, not even just like AI, but recording and the proliferation of that and those tools across, like, I would imagine all of corporate, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. As a behavioral scientist, I want to say, firstly, that recording changes our behavior. It makes us more self-conscious. We're recording this as a podcast. I'm a little bit less loose as I would be. And you're a bit like, I mean, I'm nervous. I want to say the right thing. I want to give good answers.
You're doing great.
I'm trying to cut down on my ums, and also I say I think a lot.
You're
I
doing great.
Your audience that I'll notice.
They're going to go back and listen to all of them now.
Yeah, so certainly being recorded changes our behavior, but also we habituate to it. So if we're being recorded a lot and those recordings are not being used against us.
HR has a file. Like, ooh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, we start getting used to it. And there are benefits for that. We see that in terms of there are a lot of tools out there at the moment that can essentially scrape our meetings and put together actions or document minutes and send them out.
Those are awesome.
So that's happening. And I think there's also potential for solutions that also start looking at sentiment and provide real-time feedback. So for managers to be better, maybe they're not going to know when they're losing the audience, or they can ensure that all contributions to the meeting are being heard or leveraging people's insights.
I love that one.
Yeah, being opening to new ideas. So I think we know that these inclusive actions, if you like, are really good for the productivity of meetings. So if we have an AI solution that comes into place that can start to critically assess our meetings and so our productivity can be improved by these actions and can give us feedback in real time, that could be hugely beneficial. Certainly, I know entrepreneurs who are looking at these areas, and so I think this is perhaps the better future, if you like. That's not just some Orwellian nightmare of today.
Yes, thank you. Not pure dystopia. I just came up with one as you were speaking. I mean, you sort of led me there, so we'll give credit where credit's due. But maybe tell one of your entrepreneur friends, because I was thinking about it and I was like, wow, what if we could put an end to people taking credit for others' ideas in business settings? What if AI could do that? How many times has someone, like come up with something and then it was basically taken by their boss and the boss takes all the credit? I mean, gosh, right? no more of that. Like, I have it on record. I said that, oh my gosh, yeah, that's actually a brilliant use case.
I can hear a couple of knowledge management companies like pivoting.
Totally.
Yeah.
One good outcome. That's funny. Well, Daniel, it has been such a pleasure having you back. I am so happy that you were able to join me again. Your research is awesome. I love what you're doing. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you come back with after you complete all the studies on AI and generations. We all need to hear it.
Thank you so much for having me, Maureen. It has been an absolute pleasure. And I just want to say, like, firstly, it's a privilege to be a return guest, but I just cannot believe how much this podcast has grown, the amazing guests that you've had. I came on as a guest and I've been a big fan. I've listened to lots of episodes. There is so much collective wisdom that you have built and so much awareness that you have raised for this issue of aging at work. And yeah, I want to say a big thank you for all the work that you're doing, because it just provides a great space for researchers like me to contribute. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That's all so kind, and very happy to have you here. And your research is really important to the cause. So thanks for being a part of all of it.
My pleasure.
See you for round 3 soon.
Awesome.